Hey guys, here I am with our story that we are going to finish today. Since we read part of this story on Monday and that was now a few days ago, I'm going to start the story over just so we can refresh our memory and remind ourselves of what is going on in the story. So, who can maybe tell me a character they remember from the story? We've seen a few. Oh, I remember Peter Rabbit, of course, that is our main character. I remember Mr. McGregor. He was the only human that we've seen so far. I remember the mom rabbit and Peter's siblings or his sisters, Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. Those are the characters we have met so far because this is a fiction story. Who thinks they can tell me where the setting is in this story? Now remember, setting can change, and in this story it has changed so far, but who remembers maybe where the setting is, where the story takes place? Shout it out to me. One of the settings are the rabbit's home, where they live, and the next setting is where we finish the story in the middle, Mr. McGregor's garden or his house. All right, so today and this week, remember we're going over theme. Theme, when we read fiction books, is what lesson the author is trying to tell us or teach us. What are we going to learn from this story? Because when we read fiction books, we always are going to learn something. What is the moral of the story? You might hear that word used a lot. What is the moral of the story? Or what lesson is Beatrix Potter going to teach us? And do we find the theme in the middle of the story or the beginning? No, we have to finish the entire book all the way to the end to find the theme. All right, so let's get started. The Tale of Peter Rabbit, written by Beatrix Potter, and the illustrator is Florence Graham. All right, remember how I said we're going to read it all the way through again just to refresh our memory. All right, once upon a time there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. They have a really nice home. Now, my dear, said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put into a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. Remember, that means trouble. I am going out. So the mom didn't even give that many instructions. She just said, do not go into Mr. McGregor's house or his garden. Let's see. Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. Look, they're doing their chores and gathering food for their family, like they should. But oh no, remember that silly bunny. But Peter, who was very naughty, remember that means he doesn't obey, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeaked under the gate. Now, if your mom or your grandma or someone that's in charge of you told you not to do something, would you do it anyways? I hope not. First, he ate some lettuce. And then he ate some French beans. And then he ate some radishes. Should he be doing that? Are those his? Definitely not. Then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. Now, if he's feeling sick, I don't know why he wants to eat more. But round the end of the cucumber frame, when should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Or whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Look how close they are. Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Now, why do you think Mr. McGregor is so upset and is chasing Peter? That's because would you want an animal or rabbit in your garden eating all of your food that you're maybe making for your family? I don't know. I don't think I would like an animal eating my food. So I can kind of understand why Mr. McGregor is getting so mad. Peter was most dreadfully frightened. That means he was really, really scared. Frightened is another word for very scared. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. The illustrator did a good job because I can tell on his face that he's pretty scared. Peter's pretty worried. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe among the potatoes. After losing his shoes, he ran on 4 legs and went faster. He might have got away altogether if he had not, unfortunately, run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large button on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. So that was a long few sentences, but the book was saying that he almost got away, but he got stuck in a net by his button. So that's not looking good. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears. He thought he was going to get caught for sure. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and begged him to try to free himself. Oh my goodness, those sparrows came out of nowhere and are trying to help Peter. That's so nice. Mr. McGregor came with a sieve, which he intended to pop upon Peter, but Peter wiggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. Ooh, so he was going to try to catch him with that, but he got out just in time. He keeps escaping. Peter rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not so much water in it. He looks cold. I can see that his body looks cold. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed. Look, he's looking everywhere. Perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each one. Presently, Peter sneezed. Ka-choo! Oh no, do y'all think that might give him away? I think so. Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. He tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor. He was tired of running after Peter and went back to his work. So he gave up chasing him. Peter sat down to rest. He was so out of breath and trembling with fright. He's still very, very frightened. He had not the least idea which way to go. He still did not know how to get out. Also, he was very damp from sitting in that can. That means he was really wet still. After a time, he began to wander around, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. He's lost. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked. There was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. Sadly, Peter began to cry. Now, friends, let's think about this. If Peter would have not gone into the garden in the first place, would he be lost right now and frightened and crying? No, although I do feel bad for Peter right now. He shouldn't have gone in there in the first place. Do y'all agree? All right, let's see if he gets out or if he's going to have to stay in the garden forever. We're almost towards the end. Thank you guys for listening. So awesome. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled or confused. Soon he came to a pond. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still. Peter thought it was best to go away. He had heard about cats from his cousin Benjamin Bunny. He didn't want to get into any trouble with the cat. Peter went back towards the tool shed. Suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. That's a tool you use when you garden. Scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch. Peter scurried underneath the bushes. But soon, as nothing happened, he came out, climbed upon a wheelbarrow, and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. So Mr. McGregor isn't looking, and I can see the gate far away. What do y'all predict Peter might do? Do you think he's going to hide, or do you think he's going to go for it and run towards the gate? We'll see. Let's see. Peter got down very quickly off of the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him out at the corner of his eye, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside of the garden. He made it, y'all. Mr. McGregor hung up the little blue jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten away the blackbird. So he used his jacket. Peter lost his jacket, but he did escape. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost. Where do you think he lost his other ones? I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during that evening. He still did not feel good. His mother put him to bed and made him some chamomile tea. She gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 tablespoon to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper, so they got to have a big dinner. And look at him sleeping. So, that was a really good story. So in the end, Peter did escape, but did he have a good time in the garden? Well, it started off good. He got some vegetables and he thought he was having a good time, but did he become really frightened and worried? And he almost didn't make it out. So what theme do you think we can learn from this story? What lesson do you think Beatrix Potter was trying to teach us? I think the theme was that when you disobey, there usually are consequences. When you don't follow the rules, sometimes some bad things might happen, right? In this story, he started at first, like I said, eating the vegetables and having a good time, but when Mr. McGregor saw him, he tried to catch him and he tried to find him. And do you think Peter's mom might have been sad if he gotten caught? Definitely. If Peter would have just obeyed and not gone into the garden, he would have been like his sisters. He would have gotten to eat the blackberries and had milk and bread for supper. He wouldn't have to go straight to bed, and he still didn't feel good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story. It is a good story for our month of April, because in this story, that garden and there are Easter animals and fun things, springtime. All right, thank you guys for watching this second video today. I hope you guys enjoyed this story, and I will see y'all on Friday. Bye, you guys. Miss y'all. Have a good Wednesday.